I'll tell you somebody who didn't make it very far in an interview on Fox News. That would be Donald Trump. So usually when most Republicans are invited on a Fox News show, they think it's going to be a softy interview, and usually that's what it is. They don't usually challenge Republicans in any interviews, whether it's the Sean Hannity show, whether it's Mark Levin, Laura Ingraham, the racist witch, or Tucker Carlson, Mr. White Supremacy Hoax. Usually these interviews with Republicans are, they get to coast. Let's just put it that way. But not the case in this interview. So if you don't know who Harris Faulkner is, she's a very, very distinguished anchor reporter for Fox News. She does a very good job. And she happens to be an African American. Well, they sent her out to interview Donald Trump this week. And this is a very interesting exchange because, as I said, Harris Faulkner is an African American. And she asked him a question about the tweets Donald Trump made when there's looting, there's shooting, which obviously has racial connotations dating back to the 60s. Have a listen to this exchange she has with Donald Trump, and you could see for yourself how ignorant Donald Trump is. Have a listen to this.
You look at me, and I'm Harris on TV, but I'm a black woman.
Yeah.
I'm a mom. And, and you've talked about it, but we haven't seen you come out and be that consoler in this instance. And the tweets.
Yeah.
When the looting starts, the shooting starts. Why those words?
So that's an expression I've heard over the years, and it
Do you know
really
where it comes
means
from?
I think Philadelphia, the mayor of Philadelphia, from what
it comes from 1967. I was about 18 months old at the time. Everybody's shooting Wiki because they probably got it wrong. But it was from the chief of police in Miami. He was cracking down, and he meant what he said. And he said, I don't even care if it makes it look like brutality, I'm going to crack down when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Yeah. That frightened a lot of people when you tweeted
Well, it also comes from a very tough mayor, who I might have been police commissioner at the time, but I think mayor of Philadelphia named Frank Rizzo. And he had an expression like that. But I've heard it many times from, I think it's been used many times. It means two things, very different things. One is if there's looting, there's probably going to be shooting, and that's not as a threat, that's really just a fact, because that's what happens. And the other is if there's looting, there's going to be shooting. They're very different meanings.
Oh, interesting.
No, there's very different meanings.
All right, so what a leader would have said would have been a little bit more understanding to where here's Harris Faulkner saying, African-American woman, she's a mom, and you could tell she inflicted some emotion there, and she was hurt and scared and surprised at Donald Trump's tweet. So once again, Donald Trump defends it, even though he has no clue of the history of where the looting starts, the shooting starts came from. So once again, Donald Trump doesn't apologize, doesn't show empathy towards this woman who's very intelligent. This is what Donald Trump does. He doubles down on the horrific things that he says on social media and at press conferences. Well, it continued. Because as you know, many in the African-American community, including some Republicans, have called out Donald Trump for planning to hold a Trump rally in Tulsa on Juneteenth. Now, there is some history behind Juneteenth.
Right.
It's when slavery ended. And as you know, in that area in Tulsa has a history back in the day of slavery and horrible systemic racism.
There was a massive massacre.
Yes.
That took place.
So I want you to
on that exact day.
Exactly. So I want you to listen to
In 1921.
Faulkner asking why he picked that day to hold a rally in Tulsa on purpose. Have a listen to this.
Your rally in Oklahoma is set for June 19th. Was that on purpose?
No, but I know exactly what you're going to say.
Well,
And
I'm just
think about
asking.
it.
I've not got anything to say.
Think about it as a celebration. My rally's a celebration. We're starting. In the history of politics, I think I can say, there's never been any group or any person that's had rallies like I do. I go and I just say, get me the biggest stadium, and we fill it up every time. We've never had a vacant stadium.
Okay, so there we go again. Even if that's true, and even if the president and his administration picked that date, and it had nothing to do with Juneteenth in Tulsa, if you notice, he doesn't address it. All he had to say was, listen, I know this is a day that's important for minorities, African Americans.
You want to be president really bad, don't you?
Hold on.
Brian?
No, I don't.
Are you sure?
I do a damn better job than him because I do have empathy for people. But let me go back to what we were actually talking about. So Juneteenth, all he had to do was show a little bit of empathy and understand what that date means and say, listen, I sympathize with the African American community. I promise you that's not why we picked that date. But not only did he not do that, he bragged about the size of the crowds he has. The man just is not capable.
He just deflected. But no, Juneteenth, if he doesn't, this is the perfect opportunity considering what's going on racially in the country. Notice he has not had a major press conference to talk about racial relations. If he does not choose June 19th as that opportunity to talk about racial relations and bring up the fact, this is how far we've come and totally flip the script, I'll be absolutely shocked because he is in the absolute ideal scenario. His base is 100% behind him. No one in his base is going to vote for Biden. It's just not going to take place. And his base is a lot bigger than people think. But now he has an opportunity to attempt to get some favor, some votes from the African American community. And in this situation, on June 19th, where the Tulsa massacre took place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, he can flip the script entirely and talk about how important racial relations are in this country and how important African Americans are to this particular country. And I think I don't think you're going to hear him have, just because I've watched Donald Trump the last 3.5 years. He plays chess, not checkers, Brian. I know you think he's stupid. You and a lot of people think he's stupid, and he's not. He's actually very, very smart. He doesn't talk the way that you're used to people talking like Barack Obama or George W. Bush or Bill Clinton or career politicians, because he isn't one.
So you think that was smart to choose Juneteenth?
Absolutely, of course. Well, it's not smart if he doesn't recognize the fact that the date means something, and he doesn't leverage that to attempt to get the African American vote.
So let's talk about the actual cuts
and talk about racial relations.
Right, so let's
if he doesn't do that under those circumstances, when you choose a date like that, especially after Russell Westbrook, he just announced that he's going to be producing a documentary, a 5-part docuseries about the Tulsa massacre, which very few people know about. It's considered the worst. The most aggressive, heinous racial crime in American history. There was over 100 African Americans that were murdered in that particular place. And if Donald Trump chooses that location and does not flip the script and talk about how important racial relations are, as well as African Americans in the United States, and talk about how awful what happened back in 1921 is, then I will have no choice myself but to at least question his racial intentions. I would actually say it would be cruel if he did not do that, considering he's chosen June 19th in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to actually have his first ever rally.
And I think, JD, that's what a lot of people, I think, are afraid of, is that he won't, and that he'll try to stir people up on racial grounds, and that he won't be sensitive to it. So, but time will tell. And just for a quick historical clarification, Juneteenth is not the day, not that you guys said this, but Juneteenth is not the day that slaves were emancipated. It was the day when the last remaining slaves in the United States Texas discovered that they were free men. Right. And that happened 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed.
Correct. Thank you for
That's why it's such an important.
So let me respond to what JD just said. First of all, there is no evidence in the last 3.5 years to support the fact that Donald Trump will show empathy towards anybody. So I disagree with your sentiment when you think that he's going to take this day.
I have heard the word empathy from you way too many times, Brian.
Well, that's fine. I've heard horrible things from Donald Trump every day way too many times. You can, if the word empathy bothers you, then everything Donald Trump says every day should bother you. So let me just continue here. He has shown no evidence to show any type of empathy towards minorities in the last 3.5 years. I know he likes to brag about black unemployment, but that doesn't. That has nothing to do with racial inequality, and it has nothing to do with what's going on throughout the country right now. So the fact that he picked this date, I'm going to tell you what it's going to be, because I'm going on the last 4 years of Donald Trump. It's going to be a campaign rally. He's going to rise up his base. And by the way, here's something else that we haven't talked about. Anybody that's going to this rally, you have to sign something saying that you cannot sue the president if you get coronavirus. Wanted to add that in there as well. So the White House press secretary, Kayleigh the Muppet, is talking about why Trump is opposed to renaming U.S.
Kayleigh is outstanding. She is extremely talented. She is very good, and she has done an amazing job of representing Donald Trump's viewpoints and speaking on behalf of the president since she started her job.
I'm completely shocked that you're a fan of hers.
No,
That's
she's
shocking
great.
To me. No, you're right.
If we got her
She's
on the
great
show,
at lying. You're absolutely right.
She's not great at lying. She is great.
She doesn't lie?
She flips the
Doesn't
script
lie?
on every single
She's a
media
flipper.
reporter.
Okay.
No, constantly.
Okay.
But she does it
All right.
in
All
a
right.
way that makes sense.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what.
And that exposes them
All right.
for what they're really trying
All right,
to
well,
do.
I'll tell you what
But
I'm going to
please-
do.
but please continue.
Thank you.
I
If
apologize
can.
for interrupting.
Next time somebody lies in your life, I'm going to call them great as well, and we'll see how you feel about that because she lies on a daily basis. So next time somebody lies, whether it's your personal life or business, I'll say, she is great at flipping the script. She's such a great liar. Give me a break. White House press secretary, the flip switcher, the liar, who you think is great.
She's amazing.
Okay. Yeah, she's amazing. Maybe
She has a chance of being the first female president
Right.
with Candace Owens.
And you thought-
one of those two will likely,
And
or
you-
Ivanka
right.
Trump, one of those three, I'll say, will likely be the first female president of the United States.
Well, you probably thought Sean Spicer and Sarah Suckaby Sanders was
I
great,
did not.
too.
I thought they were terrible.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'm sure that has nothing to do with their looks.
Has
Sure-
nothing to do with that
No,
at all.
I
Not-
agree.
Not even a little bit to do
All
with the
right,
looks.
fair enough.
In fact, now you're insulting my intelligence by assuming that I don't think that she's actually good at what she does. I just like to look at her. And
She's a good liar.
you're nodding your head like that,
She's a good liar.
which I don't appreciate. at all.
She's a good liar. Well, I think she's good looking. I don't think there's anything-
That has nothing to do with anything.
okay, if you
Sarah
say so.
Sanders avoided questions. Sean Spicer avoided questions. Kaylee McEnany, she takes on whatever question and she's fully prepared
Well,
for it.
here's,
And again, she turns it
all right,
around and she shows how ridiculous the CNN and various levels of media have been in regards to
Okay,
Donald
I get-
Trump and
I
the
get it. You
questions
think
that they
she's
ask.
great. I get it.
And she always reveals their true intentions. And she's
All right.
extremely great
I
at what
get
she
it.
does.
I get it. I think she's great.
I do.
By the
You're
way,
right.
the reason why I bring up her looks, there's a valid reason why I do that, because there was somebody back in the day that ran as vice president with John McCain, and she's the reason why he lost the election. Her name was the dope Sarah Palin. And if I could just finish my point, the reason why I bring up Sarah Palin is because there are a lot of Republicans on the right that thought she was great also when she has an IQ of about 25, and her whole family is white trash. Okay, her whole family. The reason why John McCain lost the election, make no mistake about it, was not because of John McCain, or as Donald Trump likes to say, he was captured as a POW. The reason why John McCain lost to Barack Obama, one main reason, Sarah the dope Palin, who couldn't name one thing she's read in her entire life because she's an idiot. But a lot of the Republicans and the evangelicals were salivating at the bits because she's semi-attractive.
Well, I wasn't one of those Republicans, Brian. And
Okay.
Sarah Palin went to the University of Idaho. Kaylee McEnany went to Harvard Law.
Okay, but my still stands.
Okay.
By the way,
And so does mine.
By the way, I never said Kaylee was dumb. Okay, I don't think she's actually stupid. I think she's a muppet.
She's far from stupid.
And the reason why I call her a muppet, it's another word, I guess, for an enabler. She enables the president of the United States. They can't admit they've ever done anything
And
wrong
I would say
in
she,
3.5 years.
I would say she disables the media from trying to turn
Well,
everything
I know.
around on the president.
I
of the
know,
United
because
States.
you, like many others,
No,
think
I
that
just
the
have-
media.
I just have a different perspective.
All right. Well, you think that the media is the enemy of the people. You echo everything. You're an echo
So
chamber for
I
Donald
think
Trump.
I'm not an echo chamber for Donald Trump at all. I think that both sides of the media do like to pick and choose things when they report it and take it out of context.
That happens on both sides.
That's what I just said, Brian.
But here's the difference.
So don't accuse me of doing something.
But here's the difference. Well, here's the thing. You
Well, there
think
is no thing.
There are a lot of
What's the
questions.
thing?
I'm trying to explain it to you.
Okay.
There are a lot of questions that the media at these press conferences asks the president of the United States or Kaylee, and I think 99% of them are fair questions that need to be addressed. And she doesn't do it. Donald Trump doesn't do it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to play a little bit of audio now. This is Kaylee the Great One. Let's call her the Great One now. Kaylee the Great One, the White House press secretary, explaining why Trump is opposed to renaming U.S. military bases named after Confederate generals. Have a listen to this.
If you change the name, what you are saying to the men and women who left those forts, who died for this country in many cases, you are telling them that the institution they left was fundamentally and inherently racist because of the name that is on it. The president doesn't stand for that proposition. He wants to respect our military, and that's where he stands on this. He made it very clear yesterday.
All right, so here's my comments to that. First of all, this has nothing to do with those. Nobody is saying that those soldiers are racist. Nobody said that. She's doesn't make any sense. What she was asked was about these specific names of certain specific people.
She's giving her opinion on it, Brian.
What these are specific names.
Which she's totally entitled to do.
What these are specific names of specific people that owned black people and were racist. Now, it has nothing to do with calling everybody that is serving this country a racist. It has nothing to do with the soldiers or calling them a racist. And it has everything to do with having empathy for the minorities out there that say that we shouldn't put these people up on a pedestal that at one point in their careers supported slavery and owned black people.
The problem with
I think that is very reasonable.
The problem with that logic is that every single the first 15 presidents, there were only 2 that didn't own slaves, Brian. Every single president that has a picture, I mean, Mount Rushmore would not exist under those circumstances. Mount Rushmore would be taken down. The dollar bill wouldn't exist under those circumstances. The Lady Antebellum, they're a country music band. Antebellum has a meaning that was thrived, or that was created during slavery. They had to change their name to Lady A. And now, since their name is Lady, you have transgenders that are probably going to protest against them as well, because they're offended by that. Everyone can be offended by anything in the country, Brian. We should not rewrite history, because if we did
not rewriting history.
It is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No,
if we did it based on people being offended, then every single person could be offended by whatever they want to be offended by, and if their voice is big enough, they could literally change every single thing in the country, and then we would just have a whole country of offended people with nothing stable and consistent, because everyone is not going to be happy 100% of the time. And yes, rewriting history is changing the names of military bases. It is destroying statues of Christopher Columbus. Yes, it is, Brian. It is taking things like Gone with the Wind off of HBO Max, or Blazing Saddles.
You don't even know what you're talking
no,
about.
I know exactly
what
what I'm talking
HBO
about.
is doing
Yes.
with Gone with the Wind.
Yes, I do.
They're actually giving you a
know,
little bit of history.
No, what they're doing is they're going to recreate it. And they're going to add something about how there's racial insensitivities with it, Brian.
They're not recreating anything.
They're going to add disclaimers to it, Brian.
They're actually giving people history. That's what
everyone is giving.
So let me
all these statues,
right,
everything that exists right now is history. The one thing that I do agree with is the Confederate flag being taken down, because that does not accurately represent. No, I'm saying when it's flying, the Confederate flag, when it's flying at an event that's taking place.
NASCAR's trying to rewrite history.
No, they're not at all.
Oh, okay.
No, they're not at all, Brian.
Okay.
No. Now you're spinning for no reason. Anyways, so that flag does not represent the country as is today. There is not slavery.
Okay, so let me respond.
The Confederacy lost the war.
All right, let me respond to everything
now,
you said.
Do I think it should be taken out of museums? No, because it is a part of history.
You've said a lot. Let me try to respond to everything you said. I don't remember everything you said, but
okay.
I'll try to respond. Well, it's not. I want to remember everything you say here. But let me just start with the number one thing here that I completely disagree with you on, and that's rewriting history. You're claiming if we take statues down and if we rename some of these places with evil, racist people that own black people and change the name on a building, that we're rewriting history. There's something called history class. There's something called getting an education. There's something called school. I took U.S. history, okay? There's also something called a library, when you can go anywhere and read a book. And there's also, if I could finish.
When you say something, do you assume that I'm not aware of that? Because I feel like you're kind of condescending when you say that.
If I can finish.
There's something called water.
Okay, well, you got to let me finish, because I feel like I'm being disrespected when you interrupt me 80 times during a show. So if you could just let me finish. Yes, there are libraries. There's something called libraries, and there's something called education in school. Just because you rename something or take a statue down or take a name down, you're not rewriting any history. Okay? Many people in my family that are Jewish, okay, we don't forget the Holocaust. And if there was a Hitler statue or there was a building named after Adolf Hitler, I would feel the exact same way I feel about some of these people. And the reason why is because we should not be celebrating. There's a difference between knowing your history and learning history and celebrating. Now, when I look at names of street corners, when I look at names of buildings or airports, you're honoring somebody. That's what it's about. It's about honoring somebody who did something in history for good, not bad. And when we look at some of these people that owned black people, I don't think we should have to say their name when going to a building or an airport or a street corner, for that matter. It's about honoring people. There's history class, like I said. There's libraries. There's ways of going on the internet and learning about history. We shouldn't have to look at it as, well, you're erasing history. And I use the Hitler scenario because Hitler owned Jews.
That would never happen in the United States, Brian. We're talking about the United States.
But it's the same. It's the same analogy.
There would never be a Hitler statue in the United States.
It's the same analogy, though. You have an evil person that owned people, in this case, Jewish people and Polish people, and then you have generals and presidents and people that owned African Americans.
Yeah, so then you're saying that George Washington should not be on the dollar bill?
I will say this
because he had 190 slaves.
Okay, so I'll answer your question. I will be very clear on this. Anybody who owned slaves, anybody, I don't care who you are, anyone who owned human beings in their career should not be named on anything. Now, it's not erasing history. We can learn about who these presidents are. We can learn about who these people were. We can learn about slavery. It's not erasing history. But my personal opinion, that's how I feel.
The Republican-led U.S. Senate, this is interesting, the Republican-led U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee actually voted to require the Department of Defense to rename those military bases. That's 14 Republicans. So it's very interesting because now you've got Republicans in the Senate who actually disagree with the president. So we'll see where this goes.
All right, let's open up the phone lines at 702-257-5396. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-257-5396. I will also add African Americans are the ones that I want to hear about this issue because they are the ones, for the most part, that are offended by this, and I don't blame them for it, by the way.